Today on Truths That Transform.
There is no point after conception at which we may say that yesterday this was not a human being and today it is.
How are we going to win if we don't have the church rise up and pray about this and really understand that this is a spiritual battle?
The Church of Jesus Christ Hello and welcome. I'm Pastor Rob Pacienza. For decades, Christians worked to get Roe v. Wade overturned at the Supreme Court. After nearly 50 years, those efforts came to fruition in 2022 in the Dobbs ruling. The people of the individual states are now free to place restrictions on abortion, and the landscape has changed quite a bit. Abortion is banned altogether now in 14 states. But there has also been a backlash, with other states making abortion even more readily available and encouraging travel to their states for abortion. On today's program, you'll discover what the Bible has to say about abortion and the value of human life. And we begin with a look at the fight for the sanctity of human life in a post-Dobbs world. Here's our own Dr. Jerry Newcomb with more.
On November 6, 2022, the voters of Ohio elected an explicitly pro-life candidate, J.D. Vance, to represent them in the U.S. Senate.
The Dobbs decision, everybody knows, overruled Roe versus Wade. I think that was the right decision.
When pro-life lawmakers define themselves, they win, and when they let the opposition define them, they lose.
And yet, on November 7, 2023, just 1 year later, Ohio voters cast their ballots in favor of Issue 1 to make abortion legal in that state, even up to the time of birth.
Since Roe v. Wade was overturned in June of last year, voters have backed abortion rights in 6 states. We did it!
In just 1 year, had the electorate in the Buckeye State changed their mind on such a critical issue? Or was something else at play here?
But I remember the day when the Dobbs decision came down, and I was near the Supreme Court praying with some others, and it was a momentous day. I remember other pro-lifers crying, others never thinking that they might see that day. But the reality is, even with the celebration of seeing Roe defeated, most of us knew that it's a new chapter in a whole different fight that has to be taken. And that fight essentially began in 50 different states around the country. And we have been involved in that battle, and we're trying to encourage many of those who may not be directly involved in the fight to know that it's not over. In many ways, again, it's just beginning.
Kansas was the first state to have abortion on the ballot post-Dobbs, and what we saw was an enormous amount of turnout and tens of millions of dollars spent by out-of-state pro-abortion activists to lie to the people of Kansas about what the ballot initiative was. This would have said the people get a say through the legislature. They lied. They said there will be no medical care. Women won't receive hospital services in an emergency. That's absolutely not true, but it turned out to be an effective message.
Okay, what happened in Ohio?
In Ohio, we saw something that led from the 2022 initiatives. The pro-abortion side has seen that if they lie, if they dump tens of millions of dollars on these states, they flood the airways saying women won't receive care, creating this binary choice where it's all abortions or no abortions, which is absolutely not the policy of the state, by the way. Ohio is a very moderate state policy. They are effective at scaring people into voting for very extreme initiatives.
It makes me angry that they don't have exceptions for things like rape or for the health of the mother.
What we've seen so far is that when you can be outspent 10-1 and when you can tell lies without the media checking you, that's an effective strategy. So for the pro-life perspective, we've got to be speaking into this void. We've got to be able to at least try to match with resources, and we've got to push back against the lies that are being told and show our compassion for both mother and child.
Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they will do whatever they can to protect that industry. So one lie that we uncovered and have pushed successfully was that abortion somehow is good for poor and minority women. The idea that killing your own children is the solution to solving your problems. It's a huge lie. At Human Coalition, we know that 76% of women who are even seeking abortion say that they would choose to parent if their circumstances were different.
The other side just really fills that void with lies, where they say women won't get medical care, there are going to be unwanted children. Our society should demand better of our politicians and of ourselves than to say that killing a child is better than a child being born in a difficult circumstance, that we can all come together and stand for that child and demand better for them, rather than say that abortion is the solution to every problem, which is what the industry, which makes billions of dollars off of killing those children, is arguing.
The ballot initiatives often paint a scenario to the voter that they could lose their rights if they don't vote for abortion, which is presented in all or nothing terms.
For decades, we were teaching generation after generation of young Americans that the right to abort an innocent baby was somehow hidden in our sacred Constitution. It was right up there with freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to assemble. Of course, it was never there. That was one of the big lies that has been forced on the American people in decades. But it had its impact. When you have generation after generation going up, particularly of young women, thinking to themselves, wow, if I make a mistake, I have a right to abort that baby. That's a sacred right I have. And then all of a sudden it's gone. So there are political ramifications from that could be troubling.
Some pro-lifers think there's an effort through these abortion ballots to discourage pro-lifers from even voting.
The life issue is never a losing issue because it's an eternal issue. It is a spiritual issue. Will there be political fallout in some districts, in some areas of the country for individuals who stand for life? Perhaps. But is life a losing issue? No, never. It is a God-centered biblical issue. And at the end of the day, you can never go wrong by standing for that which is right.
An interesting twist to all this is that pro-lifers are often presented as the extremists on the issue. But who's the extremist?
We are being presented by the pro-abortion side and by the media as being extremists. And so we need to work very hard to make it clear to them, to the public in general, that the real extremists here are the people that would abort a baby all the way up till the end of the 9 months for any and all reasons, and think that that is morally acceptable.
If you talk to most people, they do agree that there should be some limitations on abortion. They don't believe no restrictions up until 24 weeks. I mean, that's 5 to 6 months pregnancy. That's a baby that can live outside the womb.
So I think we ought to make a noble appeal to the American people, that we want an American ideally where all of our children are welcomed into the world, have a seat at the table, are part of the American family. We want that no matter what the race of the baby is, the ethnic background of the baby, whether their family is rich or poor. Every human life has dignity and value and worth because they've been made in the image of God.
In 2024, there are a number of ballot initiatives. We want to encourage people to understand pro-life leaders, Christian leaders within those states to begin to educate themselves, to engage in the culture to stand for the sanctity of human life.
How are we going to win if we don't have the church rise up and pray about this and really understand that this is a spiritual battle, that it's a battle against good and evil, that it's a battle against right and wrong, that it's a battle against life and death. I mean, if we believe that a baby's a child, an infant, that individual that God created in his image and likeness, shouldn't we promote laws to protect the unborn, the most vulnerable? When it says to speak for those who can't speak for themselves, I believe that's in the ballot box. I believe that what's happening with our society is so many Christians sit home and then they complain. They complain. They say, I can't believe these laws are in place. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this has become legal. And I'll say it's because Christians didn't vote.
Most Americans do not want abortion on demand. They don't want pills sent to their kids. So we have got to do the right thing to talk about it. And if we lose, ultimately we're going down swinging.
There are so many issues that we're dealing with that where right is looked upon as wrong and wrong is looked at as right, and the life issue is one of those things. You can never go wrong by standing for life. It's right to stand for life. God is the creator of life. And this is not, I don't like to refer to this as just a battle over abortion. It's not anti-abortion. It's being pro-life. It's being pro-baby. It is supporting and defending the life of a baby. And we're not talking about a blob of tissue. We're talking about a baby created in the image of God. And we must continue standing for those issues.
We're in a pivotal moment for the United States and for the pro-life movement. There is an abortion industry that makes billions of dollars killing children and hurting their moms. And that is who we're up against. So we need to speak clearly and honestly about that reality while also contrasting our compassion for moms and babies. The fact that pro-life pregnancy centers provide hundreds of millions of dollars in free services to help these families. Abortion is never the best interest of the child. It is never the best interest of the mom. We need to be honest and offer something better.
The reason Christians have opposed the killing of human babies in the womb is because the Bible is quite clear on the sanctity of human life as created in the image of God. It's also very clear on the matter of murder. Yet there is no shortage of those in the political and religious worlds who try to present abortion as if it were somehow morally ambiguous or even acceptable. One of the key tools they use in that battle is euphemism, using terms like reproductive health care to cover up that evil. Dr. D. James Kennedy peels all that away and gets to the biblical truth in his message, Murder, he wrote.
Our subject this morning is the sixth commandment, and our text would seem simple enough. Thou shalt not kill, 4 single-syllabled words. And in the Hebrew text, it's even simpler. It is only 2 words. And yet, it seems that there is an enormous amount of confusion that swirls around this simple text. What really does it mean? The original was first written by the very finger of God on tables of stone. And then it was transcribed by Moses into the Scripture. But what exactly was it that God wrote with his finger? It was murder, he wrote. Thou shalt do no murder is what he wrote. Now, there are people who say that the Bible is like a putty nose. You can twist it any way you like. Pull it or push it or turn it up or down. You can make it say anything that you want it to say. So we must examine the text to see what it said. This commandment, like all of the 10 commandments, is found in Exodus 20. And if we examine the context in Exodus 21, we discover that there we read such things as this: He that smiteth a man so that he die shall surely be put to death. Or, and he that smiteth his father or mother shall surely be put to death. Or, and he that stealeth a man and selleth him shall surely be put to death. And in addition to those three, there are three other texts in that very next chapter after the Ten Commandments, the 21st chapter of Exodus, where God gives specific instructions that most surely he shall be put to death. Now, it is absolutely incredible, beyond belief, that God could, in one chapter, forbid the ever taking of life, and in the very next chapter, command the taking of life 6 times. It is interesting that in none of those other passages is the word ratzak used, because that is not murder. That was capital punishment, but it is not murder. It was commanded by God. When we look at the entire context of Scripture, we see that if we go way back before Moses, all the way back to the second beginning of the human race, to that second progenitor of the human family, Noah, and we discover that when he emerged from that flood into a new world, that he brought with him 3 institutions. One was the promise that never again would the world be destroyed by a flood. The second was a commandment that he was to take and eat animal flesh, which had not been done before. And the third was this commandment, which was never given before Noah. And that was, whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. Someone left me a note as he was leaving the earlier service and said, it is interesting that today we kill our babies and baby our killers. I one time spoke on the matter of abortion, and someone said to me afterward, you believe in the sanctity of life? I said, yes, I do. He said, then I assume you are against capital punishment. I said, no, I'm not. And he said, why not? You're not being consistent. I said, no, sir, you are not being consistent. I believe in the sanctity of life, and it is simply because of the sanctity of life that man was made in the image of God that God declared, whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. Woe unto them who call good evil and evil good. And is it not strange that those who speak most loudly in favor of abortion and infanticide and euthanasia are the people that are usually most opposed to capital punishment? They are willing to kill the innocent, but they are not willing to kill the guilty. That is inconsistency. Well, what about this matter of abortion? A great deal has been said recently. I'm sure the last word has not been said, for I am as sure as I am sure that I'm standing here, that the day is not far in the future when Roe v. Wade will go the way of Dred Scott, and people one day will stand in amazement that any court could have been so obtuse as to declare that the unborn child was not a living human being. Even as people now look back on the benighted court in the middle of the last century that said that a Negro was not a human being, the Dred Scott decision. And so it will inevitably happen with this one also. I think it's interesting that not too long ago, a group of geneticists met to consider that question, a group of geneticists. And this was their conclusion. There is no point after conception, no point after conception at which we may say that yesterday this was not a human being and today it is. The facts of science are very clear. And even if they were not, one great commentator has pointed out something which I think is very interesting. Even if there were some question about the matter, which there is not, whether you look to science or whether you look to the Bible. For the Bible talks about the babe in the womb, the babe that leaped in the womb of Elizabeth when Mary came with Christ in her babe, or the babe that was sanctified from its mother's womb, as was Jeremiah, or as was John the Baptist. And you'll find that the same word, brephos, which is used for a baby, is used for the same baby inside of the womb. But even if there were some question about that matter, he points out that if you went deer hunting with a number of other friends, and you were spread out looking for deer, and then suddenly you saw a movement in the bush, but you couldn't quite make out what it was. It might be a deer, but it might be a human being. Well, there's one way to find out. Shoot it. Oh, gee, Frank, I thought you were a deer. Wrong again. Now, you know that that is preposterous. And anybody that did that would be brought up on charges of manslaughter at the least. If there is any question, you don't shoot. And even if it were questionable, which it's not, that this is a baby, you don't kill it.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Kennedy Cassidy. My dad, Dr. D. James Kennedy, was a tireless defender of the sanctity of human life. He recognized that it was the central moral issue of our time. And even in a post-Dobbs world where Roe v. Wade is no more, the fight continues. The issue has been taken out of the hands of unelected judges and handed back to the people. That's why it's more important than ever for us to act. I want to ask you to join me in calling upon the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to use his power and influence to help pass a federal law protecting preborn children from abortion after 15 weeks. Human life is sacred from conception, and this is an effort to increase protection for human life on the way to ultimately defending every single life. The petition also offers encouragement to Speaker Johnson, a strong Christian who once served at the Alliance Defending Freedom, which my dad co-founded. He has been attacked by the left and the media since he was elected Speaker, since they fear any Bible-believing Christian with power. They've called him everything from an extremist to a Christian nationalist. So this is our opportunity to voice our support and let him know that we are praying for him. Call, write, or go online to get your petition right away. Sign it and return it to us as quickly as possible so that we can make an impact with the new Speaker of the House. And if you're able to give a generous donation when you contact us, we'll thank you by sending you a new DVD, Defending Life Today, Protecting the Preborn in a Post-Christian Age. It features 2 powerful messages from Dr. Rob Pacienza, who has continued my father's mission to defend the unborn. These messages will enlighten you from a biblical perspective and encourage you to continue standing for defenseless human beings created in the image of God. Once again, contact us right away to get your petition to Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, encouraging him in his new role and respectfully calling upon him to use his influence to pass legislation protecting preborn children from abortion nationwide after 15 weeks, an important step towards the protection of all life. Sign it and send it right back to us, where your voice will be joined with thousands of others. And if you're able to give a generous donation when you contact us, we'll also include the 2-message DVD from Dr. Rob Pacienza, Defending Life Today, Protecting the Preborn in a Post-Christian Age. Simply write to us at Coral Ridge Ministries, Box 11154, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33339, or call toll-free 877-962-7677, or go online to crm.tv.
In the 1980s, there was a woman who used to conduct sit-ins at abortion clinics all over Florida. She was arrested and sentenced by an angry judge to 5 years in prison, which included a 40-day stint in solitary confinement. Today, at the age of 74, she sits in a prison yet again over another abortion protest and could be sentenced to 11 years. Why would she do this? Why risk everything rather than enjoying an undisturbed life? When someone once asked her that, she told a story from her childhood. When she was 12 years old, she and her cousin were swimming in a river when the rough current swept her cousin away. Though a poor swimmer, she had a decision to make. She jumped into the water and rescued her cousin. She was afraid of the water, she said, but then a greater fear grabbed me, the fear of doing nothing. We are very blessed to have seen Roe v. Wade overturned by the Supreme Court in 2022, but the abortions still continue. So what are we to do? Christians have been active for life and played a decisive role in the philosophical overhaul at the Supreme Court. Our culture still views the unborn as a product of conception, subject to our own convenience and desires. Is there another group more persecuted? Is there another group that is more vulnerable than the unborn? The Church of Jesus Christ is the hope of the world. It is the church that brings salt and light. It is the church alone that offers a message of forgiveness and hope. It's the church that delivers the message of transformation. So, this is not the time to pull back. This is the time to advance with truth and love. Let's commit to vote and donate and volunteer and convince so that our children and our grandchildren may one day walk down streets in America where abortion is such a thing of the past that they can't even fathom something so barbaric. We not only want to see abortion being illegal in this nation, we want it to be unthinkable. I want to thank you for joining us today. If you're ever in South Florida, you're welcome to join us for worship in person here at Coral Ridge on Sunday mornings, or tune in via live stream at crpc.tv. Also, make sure to connect with us on social media at Facebook, Twitter X, Instagram, and on YouTube, and check out the rich library of content at our website now at crm.tv. And now, here's a look at the next Truths That Transform.
And the number one thing we have to do is reclaim our children right now, because our children are being indoctrinated in their schools with these philosophies.
That's next week. This has been a production of Coral Ridge Ministries.